We're tracking severe weather on this Friday, July 24th on This Is Now.
The fact that Douglas is moving so quickly toward us, we don't have a lot of window for it to weaken tremendously.
Amid a pandemic, residents across the state scrambled to prepare for the storm.
It's actually been easier this year because we had already stocked up so much for the pandemic.
Lashed by the economic crisis, some families find storm preparedness is out of reach.
Me, along with a lot of other people, need the help staying afloat.
The Department of Education has been working very, very hard to get open, but as you saw yesterday with 55 cases, it's already a great challenge for our state, and we don't want to have mass spread.
These stories, plus what the Lieutenant Governor has to say about the reopening of schools, coming up on This Is Now.
Good afternoon. Thank you for watching this special report from This Is Now. I'm Jonathan, your director-producer, alongside Ashley here. Another huge spike in COVID-19 cases for the state. They're reporting 60 new ones.
More on that a little later, but first, forecasters say Douglas is expected to weaken further, but it will still be at or near hurricane strength when it nears the state. Let's turn it over to Guy and Ben for your latest forecast.
Here's the latest on Hurricane Douglas.
The good news is it has weakened just very, very slightly. It is still a Category 3 hurricane, making it a major hurricane. Winds of 115 miles per hour with gusts to 140. It is still moving very rapidly to the west-northwest right now at 18 miles per hour, and it's still a very impressive looking hurricane.
Yeah, you can tell, Ben, because we got that eye that reemerged. This morning earlier, that eye kind of collapsed, and that showed definitely a sign of weakening, and it has weakened, but very, very slowly. So still going to be a powerful storm by the time it gets to our neighborhood.
And it will get very close to our neighborhood. Latest forecast track basically has the entire cone still for most of the state. A little bit of a closer look there. Looks like the center still has the potential of going through the middle of the island of Hawaii, and it will come very, very close to Maui. Is a Category 1 hurricane with 75 mile per hour winds, and possibly it's a tropical storm, a very strong tropical storm with those strong winds.
Now, when you look at this, there's a lot going on this map, right? We got times, we got the icons, and we have all these lines representing forecast models. But the official forecast is for this red line running through the icons, and that's where we expect it to go. But you shouldn't focus on that. What you should focus on is the entire cone, and what's really disconcerting is almost the entire state is under the cone.
Pretty much, and that means where the cone is, that's only where the center is going to go.
Correct.
So when you factor in all the stuff that's radiating outward from the center, the strong winds, the hurricane force and tropical storm force winds, and the rain, don't forget the rain, that's still a threat. It could happen anywhere, so everybody's under threat right now.
So going closer to the timeline, right, Sunday, 8 a.m., Category 1 storm with tropical storm force winds in excess of 39 miles an hour that could extend out some 115 miles out from the center. So if it's there, it'll likely brush the Hamakua coast, and then Sunday night it moves onto Maui County.
Yeah, and then definitely by that time, as we get into the early morning hours of Monday, Oahu's going to be impacted, and so will Kauai at this point, either way. Now, right now, we just have one warning or advisory that's up. That's a hurricane watch, and that's basically for waters. Actually, let's change that, because I'm noticing that now that the islands of Maui County and Hawaii Island are now also in this area.
And that means hurricane conditions are possible over the next 48 hours. Not guaranteed, but possible. And before, earlier, it was only for the coastal waters. Now it's for all the coastal waters as well as all the land areas as well.
Yeah, so definitely be prepared, take those precautions, and it's also likely that we're going to be getting more updates a little bit more frequently as far as the time and the tracks and so forth in the forecast. But once again, Maui County, Island of Hawaii, Hawaii County, you are under a hurricane watch until further notice. Let's talk about the sea surface temperatures real fast, because that's one of the things that's going to be affecting the track right now.
Yeah, because the waters are slightly cooler, that's these lighter colors, slightly cooler. That's why there's a slow degradation, a slow weakening as the storm approaches us. But again, still Category 1 winds sometime late Sunday into Monday.
Yeah, so that's still going to be a factor there. Let's talk about the winds really, really briefly because we're looking at, I think this is the GFS model, and you can definitely see the winds are still going to be very, very strong. Doesn't matter pretty much where you are, we're still going to get very strong winds. Looks like Oahu and Kauai are still definitely in the sights of some of those stronger gusts.
And as that storm system moves, it's going to be shifting the winds as well. The direction is going to be coming from the north, northeast, and then eventually some spots even from the south. Now we're talking about the winds mainly, right? But don't forget, there's going to be a lot of rain with this system. Some spots could get upwards of 6 to 15 inches, and that will likely lead to flooding.
Yeah, so just be prepared for Hurricane Douglas.
All right, we're joined now by American Red Cross new regional CEO, Diane Peters-Wynn. How's it going, Diane?
Thanks for having me. This is a really interesting time at this point.
Let's talk about the neighbor islands because they would see the first impact from the storm if they see any at all. What specifically is being done there from the American Red Cross standpoint?
Yes, we're working again very closely with the Civil Defense and Department of Health over there. And we, anticipate that the Big Island often is the first one to, and often bears the brunt of these natural disasters. So they've been working very hard. I understand that they're going to be identifying which shelters will be open. And I did hear that some shelters would be opening tomorrow. It may be sooner. And, as the sort of triple impact of the hurricane would be the high winds, the high surf, and of course flooding from the rains.
Earlier this week, you guys put out a very specific call to volunteers, really looking for people with sort of healthcare training. Has that been answered at all? Do you still need help?
We do still need help, and we have been putting the call out very aggressively because a number of our traditional volunteers that have been long-time volunteers with the Red Cross, and including my aunt who's a volunteer on the Big Island, but many of our volunteers are in that risk group that they do not feel comfortable, or because of age or existing medical conditions are not able to be in the shelters at this particular time. So we do want all of our volunteers or potential volunteers first to be safe personally, their families, their homes, and then if they are able to come out and help, we would greatly appreciate that. So the call we've been putting out is to volunteers that can work on site in the shelters and also serve as shelter supervisors, and also a need for healthcare volunteers, whether they've been charge nurses or EMS leads or physicians, retired. All of those folks are urgently needed.
Just last question here. Is there anything else that you want to tell the public that they should know to stay safe during this storm?
A lot of the time we think about going to the shelters, and in this case, we would ask people to use it as a last resort. I think it's important that if they first try to shelter in place or with family and friends. And the reason that we're saying that is because there is a limited amount of space. So with the new requirements, we may be only able to accommodate half as many people in a particular shelter. So with that said, it's best if they try to shelter in place.
All right, Diane, you guys are certainly dealing with a unique situation this hurricane season. Thank you so much for joining us. We're going to toss it back over to our co-host, Ashley.
All across the state, government work crews are clearing roadways and drainage systems to prevent flooding. Hawaii's Highway Division is checking state-owned routes and facilities for their storm readiness and keeping crews on emergency standby. On Oahu, the city says major construction projects, including the rail line, are instructing workers to secure their sites and tie down equipment.
DFM, Division of Facility Maintenance, is clearing storm drains and streams as we talk around the island. Department of Design and Construction is going to all construction sites, or reached out to all construction sites where there are city projects like this one, They make sure they button up.
Hawaiian Electric Company says crews are busy clearing trees and vegetations near power lines and getting equipment ready for emergency repairs. And Hilo residents are used to being first in line for hurricanes like this coming from the east. Hardware stores are stocked up for people buying generators and plywood to board up windows. Hawaii County plans to close its parks ahead of the storm. The mayor is telling everyone to stay indoors this weekend.
This goes for all coastal recreational areas. You have things planned for Saturday, Sunday, or Monday. Cancel it right now or postpone it right now and be safe and hold it for another day, and you'll have another day.
For more on how the neighbor islands are preparing, here's Maui Mayor Mike Victorino.
Right now we have Public Works and the Parks Department and others out there cleaning culverts, cleaning out drains, trying to prepare ourselves for heavy rain in areas where are susceptible to flooding.
We've heard it time and time again. We are all supposed to have 2 weeks worth of storm supplies, but that's a huge burden and expense for the nearly 80,000 residents who are still unemployed. Our Chelsea Davis takes a closer look at that hardship.
Such bad timing. Some people can't even afford to fill up on gas, let alone 2 weeks worth of supplies. And other struggling families are grappling between getting a hurricane kit ready or paying their bills.
I still have got nothing.
Jordan Paval applied for unemployment back in March. 17 weeks later, he is still waiting for his check. His auto repair business in Hilo is pulling in less than half his usual income. And now, with Hurricane Douglas spinning toward the state, he simply can't afford 14 days of supplies for his family of 4.
Me, along with a lot of other people, need the help staying afloat.
And especially this time of hurricane season, and we have to stock up one coming right now. And we're like, we're worried.
Pa'awilo resident Keith Steele also has received no benefits. And with a family of 5, he says his savings are running out quickly.
We have our other bills that we should be paying and keep that up to date as well. So, what do we choose? Not pay our bills and stock up for the 2 weeks?
The Hawaii Labor Department says it's paid $2.3 billion in benefits since March 1st. 92% of valid claims have been paid out. The agency blames delays on the massive amount of fraud and the efforts to verify claimants. Meanwhile, this is the last week of the extra $600 in federal benefits. Congress is poised to expend the payouts, but likely at a lower rate. That's no help to Paval right now. He's just hoping his next paycheck will be enough to cover the bare minimum to make it through the storm.
I'm waiting till tomorrow to do whatever I gotta go get gas, when I get a paycheck, to go get gas and, some foods and whatever necessities I would need.
We reached out to the Labor Department multiple times asking if they're going to rush the benefits because of the hurricane season, but our calls and messages went unanswered. Chelsea Davis, Hawaii News.
Let's continue our team coverage with Casey Lund, who's at a local hardware store, to tell us more about how to prepare your home and your family for the storm.
Yeah, City Mill was busy this morning, guys. People were coming here for the essentials. Again, things like flashlights and batteries. When we started here on Sunrise this morning, this bin, for example, was filled with those collapsible water containers where you can store potable waters. But a lot of people have been grabbing those things off the shelf, and you can see just how busy they've been today. Batteries, other items, they've been going very quickly. City Mill, of course, will be open from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. today, so you can still come by and get some of your emergency preparedness kit things together. I want to introduce Frank Suster, Mr. Fix-It with City Mill. Frank, yeah, we are literally watching things kind of fly off the shelves as folks are getting prepared. But this is still, you guys still have a lot of great resources to get people prepared. Talk to me about what you should really focus on if you're just getting the bare essentials.
Again, if you have a storm, usually you have a power failure. No electricity, so you're going to need lights. So it's great to have flashlights, batteries. And then the other thing is, if the electricity's down, the water station can't pump the water to your home. So if you want to have bulk storage of water, we have a water bob, which can hold up to 100 gallons of water.
The last thing I want to ask you about is the window taping. A lot of folks do that. Give me the best advice for that and when it's appropriate.
Again, when you purchase duct tape and you put X on your window, and they'll make a X across their window, but this is not going to prevent the window from breaking. All it's going to do is keep the glass secured so that if that flying coconut hits your window, the glass will fall straight down rather than flying all the way across the room.
Yeah.
Always tape on the inside, not on the outside, because the rain will dissolve the tape. It's always better to have pieces of plywood cut and fastened.
They can do that for you here at City Mill as well. But a reminder, they're going to be pretty busy today, open from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. You can go to citymill.com for more locations and hours. We'll send it back to you guys for now. I'm Casey Lund for This Is Now.
Thank you, Casey. Good tips there. I wanted to show this picture to our viewers. This is Costco in town. You can see that gas line there. Yesterday we saw the line for people trying to get into the store. This is just for gas. So, you know, if you want to do your shopping, now is the time. Don't wait any longer, I would say. All right, I also wanted to let our viewers know tomorrow we're going to have a special edition of This Is Now. It's going to be on KHNL, our digital platforms, and additionally on KGMB. It's going to happen at noon like it normally does. So stay tuned to us then. And in the meantime, let's get to some other coronavirus news.
The State Health Department is reporting 60 new COVID-19 cases today, which surpasses yesterday's record as the highest one-day count since the beginning of the pandemic. 58 patients are on Oahu, 1 is on Maui, and 1 was diagnosed out of state. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Governor Josh Green spoke with us today on Sunrise about the current plan to reopen public schools on August 4th.
Board of Education is going to call a special meeting next week to decide what to do as far as delaying schools, the reopening. What would you like to see happen?
I'd like to see comprehensive health plans for the teachers and for the students so that no matter what, we know they can be safe. We haven't seen enough health planning, and the Department of Education has been working very, very hard to get open. But as you saw yesterday with 55 cases, it's already a great challenge for our state, and we don't want to have mass spread. So we have to have the ability to test teachers and test these bubbles, make sure students are keeping the virus contained if they do have an outbreak. So that's what I'd like to see. I will not be surprised if the date gets pushed if we continue to see numbers like this.
Okay, how far do you think we'd get it pushed? Like a month, kind of like what we saw with tourism?
Any push is going to always be either 2 weeks or a month if it occurs, because that's the cycle of the virus. And also, we're very cognizant that we want to get our kids educated. Their psychological development and social development and intellectual development are all on the line. But it's too soon to say. Of course, we're dealing with a hurricane and the pandemic right now, just, a special 1-2 punch for Hawaii. So it remains to be seen. But stay tuned, because I think that with 55 cases yesterday and a lot of the teachers being fearful of spread, we have to be empathetic to their needs.
Yeah, okay, so we look at both sides, right? So we think about the safety of our teachers, obviously, but then also the students themselves and then whoever they come into contact with. Do you think, because of what we're seeing and just how contagious this could be, that the teachers should all get tested before they go into the classrooms, given that they could potentially spread this as well?
I think the teachers should have the right to get tested as often as they would like when they have concerns. And that means we have to obviously beef up testing and tracing, which is what I've kind of been saying for some time. This is why I've been essentially shouting from the top of the mountain that we should have 10,000 tests available a day. Because once you start opening up large institutional structures like a Department of Education with 13,000 educators, you're going to have extra need. It's not some kind of game or a projection, it's real. The teachers deserve to have that. The students and the parents deserve to know that their kids are not exposed.
Dr. Green, you have kids, you're a parent. Are you sending them back to school August 4th?
Yes, I will. I have one kid in public school, one kid in private school. I love my kids more than anything on the planet, so that I wouldn't take any risks. I feel that they can do it safely, but I'm concerned like anybody else. So my 9-year-old who goes to a charter school, they've already really thinned down the size of the classrooms. We're still talking to our principal to find out what the best approach is for our school, but we feel it can be done. But even having said that, if they decided to delay or they wanted to take a week off or 2 weeks off periodically because they were afraid that there was spread, I'd be completely understanding.
Wanted to show you this. It's something our H&N digital team has put together. It's an interactive timeline that takes a look at the tropical cyclones that have impacted Hawaii over the years. So let's begin our look back at some of the storms that have left a mess. We start in the 1950s. It was August of 1950 to be exact. Hurricane Hiki is considered the first official recorded hurricane in the vicinity of the islands, and it's also the wettest tropical cyclone in U.S. history, dropping an estimated 52 inches of rain. The next slide takes us to 1957 and Hurricane Nina. At its closest approach, the storm was still about 120 miles away from the state, but that was close enough for the Garden Isle to feel its impact with 92 mile-per-hour winds and 35-foot surf. Up next, we go to 1959 and it's Hurricane Dot. Dot passed south of the Big Island, bringing wind and rain before curving slightly to pass over Kauai. On August 6th, the island saw winds exceeding 100 miles per hour and heavy rain yet again, which damaged homes, toppled trees. The bulk of the damage, though, was to agricultural assets. Moving on, more than a decade would go by before Hurricane Eva would take aim at the state. It was November 1982 when the storm walloped the islands. Yet again, the Garden Isle's south shore was especially hard hit, but Oahu's west side did take a battering from high surf. 10 years later, a lot of folks will remember this one, Hurricane Iniki, in September of 1992. Iniki damaged or destroyed more than 14,000 homes, and the cleanup was slow and costly. Just 20% of the island's power had been restored after 4 weeks. Estimated damage from this hurricane exceeded $3 billion. As we move forward in time all the way to 2014, August, we're talking about Hurricane Iselle. Once it made landfall, Iselle was actually just a strong tropical storm, but it still brought drenching rain, damaging surf, and strong winds, which brought down trees and caused widespread power outages. One person was killed by flooding, and more than 200 homes and businesses sustained damage. Next, all we have to do is travel forward 1 year to 2015, one for the record books. There were 15 named storms, shattering the previous records. While several of the 2015 storms came close to the islands, none made a direct hit, thankfully. And moving forward, the very next year, you can see Tropical Storm Darby took aim at the Big Island. Darby was barely a tropical storm when it made landfall at about 2 p.m. on July 23rd, but it still packed a powerful punch. The biggest impact of Darby by far was the heavy rains, which caused flooding across the state. You might remember this image. Motorists were even stranded on the H1 because of that flooding, and tons of debris washed down to the shorelines. We're going to go to 2018 to talk about Hurricane Hector. Hector brought high surf and cloudy skies to the islands and went on to set a record for the longest-lived hurricane to remain a Category 3 or above while churning in the Northeast Pacific. After Hector that same year, of course, we had Hurricane Lane. Lane dropped torrential rains on the Big Island, and we'll all remember those wind-whipped brush fires that devastated Maui. And from Lane, we'll move forward to September of that year of 2018 for Hurricane Olivia. Olivia made landfall on Maui and Lanai as a tropical storm, dumping heavy rains and causing flooding. It was the first tropical cyclone to make landfall on the Valley Isle since official record keeping started in the 1950s. Again, you can find this interactive timeline on any of our H&N digital platforms. Just click on the tab that says Tracking Hurricane Douglas. Alright guys, that's going to do it for This Is Now, but stay with us. For our TV viewers, we're going to come back in just a moment for a special press conference with Mayor Caldwell, and for our digital viewers, stay right on this live stream. We will bring it to you momentarily. It's Mayor Caldwell and a number of other city officials giving an update on how the city is preparing for the storm, and then later today at 1:30 there will be a press conference with the governor. We will also bring that to you live on all of H&N's platforms. That's television and digital. And don't forget, we're podcasting all the time, anywhere you find your podcast. Stay safe, guys.